Secret 7 Win Through by Enid Blyton. It was the Easter holidays, and the Secret 7 were anxious to hold a meeting as soon as possible. But to their great disappointment, their old meeting shed at the bottom of the garden was being cleaned and painted, and it wasn't yet finished. This meant that they had to meet in the summer house. But as there was no door on the summer house, they were not happy about that, because Jack's awful little sister Susie would be sure to come along and listen to their plans and interfere. So at 6 o'clock that evening, after they had all given the password, Easter egg, and made sure Susie wasn't about, the Secret 7 and Scamper met in the summer house to talk about where they could hold their meetings until the old hut was ready again.
Now, I want each of you to report about any likely place you know of. You start, Colin.
Well, Peter, there's a fine big tree at the bottom of our garden, and it's...
No good, I'm afraid. Too near to the wall and everybody would hear us up there. Barbara, what's your idea?
Oh, it's a silly one. There's an old hut in a field near our house and it's got...
I know it. Not a bad idea, Barbara. You, Pam?
I simply haven't any idea at all. I've thought and thought, but it's no use.
Not very helpful. You, George?
There's an empty caravan in a field not far from here, and the owner is a friend of my father. I think I could get permission to use it.
That sounds really exciting.
Good.
Sounds good, George. And you, Jack? And don't suggest anywhere near your house because of Susie.
I'm not quite so silly as that. No, I've chosen an old boathouse down by the river that nobody uses.
Oh, yes, sounds really exciting.
Sounds exciting.
Now we've heard everyone's idea except mine and Janet's. We went out hunting together and Scamper came too. And we've all got the same idea.
Go on, tell us. What?
It's a cave in a quarry near our potato field. So it's on our father's land and not very far. It's absolutely lonely and secret and goes back into the hill behind the quarry. Scamper found it, actually.
That sounds good. A secret cave.
Now we've heard all our ideas, so we'll put it to the vote. Here are some slips of paper, so just write down what ideas you like best. But nobody must vote for their own idea, of course.
So everyone solemnly wrote something on their papers, then handed them to Peter. He opened them and read them, and to his delight, everyone, except he and Janet, had voted for the cave. They all thought they should go and see their new meeting place straight away. So Peter led them through the garden, across a field, past a pond with ducks on it, and turned right into the old quarry. Sand had been dug from it years ago, and it had been abandoned. As they stood and looked around, Scamper ran off through a gap in some bushes and vanished.
Where's Scamper gone? Into the cave. You can see the entrance just there. It's all hung over with a plant with long trailing stems. Come on, let's go in.
Gosh, the bushes are thick, aren't they?
Yes, no wonder we've never come across the cave before. We wouldn't have found it now if old Scamper hadn't disappeared and we went looking for him. When we called him, he suddenly appeared here under the trailing leaves that hide the cave. Didn't you, Scamper? I'll hold the greenery aside while you look in. There, now you can see into the cave properly.
Nice and big, isn't it? With a lovely sandy floor.
Lovely. It's a wonderful meeting place, I think.
Nobody would ever find it. It's a bit dark, that's the only thing. It's the green curtain over the door that makes it so dark.
I'll hold it back. Look.
That's fine. A cave with a ready-made curtain.
And look, the cave has a rock roof, high here and low there. And there are rocky shelves around the walls where we can put all our things. I expect we'll have to use this cave all our Easter holes, so we can make it a kind of home, as well as a meeting place.
Yes, we can bring cushions and a box for a table.
We can keep food and lemonade here. It will be fun.
Yes, Jack. but be careful not to let your sister Susie follow you here. She'd just love to come and bring her silly, giggling friends here and mess things up.
Oh, I'll be very careful, don't you worry. Can we come here when we like, Peter?
Anyone can come when they like, but please leave it tidy and don't go and eat all the food we leave here.
Of course, nothing wrong with that.
Right. We'll have a meeting tomorrow morning at 10. Bring what you like to make the cave comfortable. Bring books if you like, and games. The cave's quite dry.
Everyone was sorry to leave the exciting cave. It was nice and spacious, though the roof was not very high, and it was only in places that the 7 could stand upright. Its floor of soft sand reached right back into a mysterious darkness, quite out of reach of the sunshine. Peter held the curtain back as they went in one by one. Scamper last of all, with his tail wagging madly. He liked the cave as much as the others. The children all said goodbye to each other and went off to their different homes, most excited. When Jack arrived home, his sister Susie looked at his sandy shoes and asked where he had been, but Jack pushed by her and said nothing. The next day, Janet and Peter went to the old shed to collect the cushions and a few other things, and were very laden indeed as they made their way down to the quarry. Scamper carried a bone in his mouth, as he wanted to take something too. Peter and Janet were there before the others.
Leave the greenery over the entrance, Janet. Anyone coming will have to give the password. Then we'll know it's one of the secret 7.
Good idea. Hand me the things and I'll arrange them on these rocky shelves.
All right. I'll wait by the entrance and ask for the password. The sand is so soft, we won't hear anyone coming. Password. Easter egg. Come in, Colin.
Gosh, I never knew books were so heavy. I brought my whole set of Famous 5 for anyone to borrow.
Fine. Put them on the shelf. Password. Easter egg. Come in, Pam and Barbara. Janet will see to your parcels. Password.
Easter egg!
Not so loud, idiots. Come in. Jack, Susie didn't follow you here, did she?
No, we left her at the bottom of our garden.
Good-o. Now I'll tie our greenery curtain back and let the light in. There.
Oh, it's
Great.
And we're lovely and safe and secret here too. I don't expect anyone remembers that there was ever a cave here.
And Scamper would bark if anyone wandered near.
Yes, and it's all beginning to look quite cosy already.
And it was. The box table was in the middle, and the cushions arranged on the sandy floor. The books and plastic cups and bottles of lemonade were on the ledges, and a tin stood in one corner. It had in it some of the food the 7 had brought. On another ledge was a tin of bottled sweets, a packet of biscuits, 2 bars of chocolate, a jar of crab paste, and another of homemade strawberry jam.
It all looks very good indeed.
Yes, we found a place for everything. By the way, that corner belongs to Scamper. He's buried his bone there, so please don't disturb it, anyone.
You can stop sitting there, Scamper. We shan't take it. We know it's your bone, and we don't want it.
I'm hungry after all this. I vote we choose something to eat. We've got very well filled cupboards.
I'll have a ginger bun. My mother made them yesterday. They're lovely. Let's begin with those.
Good idea. They're really delicious.
Yes, I remember you brought some to the last meeting.
So there they all sat, the secret 7 happily munching ginger buns. The cave proved to be a great success. On rainy days, they could play games or lie in the sand and read. There were plenty of cushions, and the shelves were always stacked with books and magazines, and with food and drink. And even Susie hadn't discovered their secret, although not through lack of trying. One sunny day, the secret 7 decided they would have a game of hide and seek. The cave would be home, and Jack was the one chosen to go to the other side of the quarry, close his eyes, and count to 100 before he began looking for the others. As he opened his eyes after counting, he glanced towards the cave and saw someone running into it.
That's not fair. They haven't given me a chance to find them. I'll soon find out which one of the 7 it is and tell them what I think of them. Well, it's not Pam, because I can see her blue dress through those bushes. I'll catch her first.
He rushed at her, but Pam escaped and ran laughing to the cave. Then he saw Janet, Barbara and Scamper rushing to the home, and then Colin, who was too quick for him. He hunted everywhere for George and Peter, and eventually found them hiding behind a great hummock of sand. George escaped, but Jack grabbed Peter and took him back to the cave. When they were all together, Jack looked puzzled.
There's something I don't understand.
What don't you understand?
Well, I saw someone slipping into this cave immediately after I'd finished counting. But I saw you all run into the cave except you, Peter, and I caught you.
Well, what's puzzling you?
Just this. That makes 8 of us, not counting Scamper. What I want to know is, who was the 8th?
Well, I didn't slip in. It's really strange, isn't it?
Well, you caught me.
I definitely saw someone come into this cave before I discovered any of you.
There's nobody here. Oh, Jack, could it have been Susie?
I don't know, but whoever it is must still be in here. I found Pam almost immediately, and she rushed straight here. You didn't see anyone, did you, Pam?
Of course not. If I'd seen Susie, I would have been furious with her.
Let's shine the torch round and have a look. Come forth, O wicked intruder.
That's odd. Very odd. Give me the torch, Peter. I'll go and see if there's any hole at the end of the cave we may have missed.
Here you are, but I'm sure there isn't. Cheer up, Jack. You must have imagined it. Anyway, would anyone come into the cave when we were all here in plain view?
But we weren't! Look, we were playing hide and seek, and were all quiet and well hidden. Anyone coming at that moment would have thought the place was deserted.
I see what you mean. But there's nobody here, so let's have another game. My turn to find you all. Go and hide.
Nobody said any more about Jack's idea that someone had slipped into the cave, and Jack began to think he must have imagined it. Then, after a few more games, they tidied up the cave, went out, made sure the green curtain was across the entrance, and arranged to meet back there the next afternoon, and went home. But the next day, they all had a shock. When they arrived at the cave, they could see that someone had been there before them. The biscuit tin was on the floor, the buns were nearly all gone, one of the books was missing, and 3 cushions had disappeared. Of course, they immediately suspected Susie, and Jack went straight back to his home to find his sister and ask her if she had been there. The other 6 sat round waiting for him to return, and after an hour he gave the password, entered, and threw himself down on the sandy floor.
Well, I've had an awful time. She said she never even knew this place existed, and when I accused her of coming here and taking our things, she flew into such a temper that Mother heard her and came to see what was the matter.
Bother! What happened next?
Mother made me tell where our meeting place is.
Was Susie there when you told?
Yes, and she said she was going to find the cave and make a real mess of it. I don't think she was here this morning. Mother said she was with her friend Jeff all the time in the garden.
Who was here then?
We don't know, but now Susie knows about the cave, we must be on our guard.
I wouldn't be surprised if she brought Jeff with her and turned the whole place upside down. You don't know her like I do.
Well, let's make a trap for her or something.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do what my cousin once did to someone he didn't like.
What was that?
He got a reel of cotton and dipped it in honey. Then he wound it all over and across the entrance to our summer house. Then, when this awful boy went into the summer house, he walked straight into the sticky threads and thought that an enormous spider's web had caught him.
Oh, how horrible. Susie would hate it. She loathes spiders. But who's got cotton or honey? Nobody here. I can run indoors and get some.
But aren't we being rather horrid to Susie?
No, it will only be her own fault if she comes inside our cave.
It's no good being soft-hearted with Susie. Sometimes I think she's cleverer than any of us.
So Janet ran off to the house to get the honey and cotton, and before they left the cave, Janet ran the thread through the sticky honey, and the boys wound it back and forth across the entrance. Everyone giggled and wished they could be there to see the booby-traps catch any intruder. But twice that evening, Peter went up to the cave to examine the trap, but it hadn't been disturbed. The next morning, the Secret Seven went to the cave again, but the booby-trap was untouched. So with great care, they removed it and went into the cave. But what a shock they got. The tins were opened and thrown on the floor, 2 more cushions had disappeared, and more books and food and a torch which Colin had left on a shelf had gone too. The children began to feel scared. How could all their things be taken if no one had entered the cave?
There's no way into this cave from the inside. We've looked. So where does this awful visitor come from?
I don't know, but Scamper seems very interested in the cave this morning. Look at him, sniffing and nosing around.
I don't like this at all. I vote we clear out this cave and go and find another meeting place. It's no fun here if we're going to be messed about by some unknown visitor. Anyhow, I don't like the sound of him.
Nor me. Let's start clearing up straight away.
Scamper's dug up his bone already. Where's he gone now? He's found something on that ledge. Look!
Come here, Scamper. What is it? Let me have it. Good dog. It's a notebook. A bit scruffy. Anyone own this?
Definitely not. It's too scruffy for me.
Peter, it may have been dropped by our strange visitor. Look inside.
Yes, it does belong to our visitor. And here's his name. Look. Wow, this is a find. He dropped it when he came raiding our cave last night. Albert Tanner. He's our mysterious visitor. Who can he be? Well, we'll find out somehow.
Let's clear out of here quickly, before Albert Tanner knows we found his notebook. We're all ready to go. Let's scoot off now and examine the notebook in secret.
Good idea. Ready, everyone? Come on then.
They left the cave carrying what was left of their things, and soon they were all sitting on the little bench in the summer house. Peter took out the worn notebook from his pocket and turned a page or two. There wasn't much in there except a few banknotes and a short shopping list. Disappointed, he handed the book to Jack, who looked through it too. At the back was a folded piece of leather, and Jack slipped his fingers into it.
Look, tucked in here. It's a note to Albert Tanner.
What's it say?
It's a scribble. It says, "Dare not write it. Jim knows the place. He'll tell you. Meet him on post office seat, 8:30 p.m, 15th. Ted."
The 15th, that's today. A few of us will go to the post office seat tonight and sit there. Perhaps we'll see this Jim and hear what he says to Albert.
We can't. Mother is taking George and us to the cinema. Don't you remember?
Bother. And we can't get out of that without giving the whole thing away. Colin, you and Jack must go.
Right, can you come, Jack?
Oh, yes. And perhaps one of us could follow Jim and the other follow Albert. I must say, I'd like to follow Albert if he goes back to the cave.
Let's read that note again. Daren't write it. Jim knows the place. He'll tell you. Meet him on post office seat, 8:30 p.m, 15th, Ted.
Would that mean something's hidden in the place?
Probably. I wish I was going with Colin and Jack tonight.
Colin met Jack that evening by the big chestnut tree outside the post office. It was dark with no moon. They decided that Colin would hide behind the tree and Jack would climb up and perch on a branch overhanging the seat. With hearts beating fast, they went to their places and waited. Several people came past, and then just as the church clock chimed 8:30, two shadowy figures approached from opposite directions and sat on the seat. Jack heard one ask the other if he was Albert, and then the silence was shattered. Colin sneezed.
What was that? Hey, there's a boy lurking behind that tree. What are you doing there, eh?
Stop shaking me! I was only... Ouch! Stop it!
It's only a kid. Let him go. We don't want any noise here.
All right. Now clear off. He's gone. Now, Jim, you got something to tell me, haven't you?
Yeah, the Scarecrow. That's where it is, by the Scarecrow.
Thanks. We better push off now. Cheerio.
By the time Jack was safely down the tree, both men had disappeared. Jack made off feeling decidedly scared. He called at Colin's house to make sure he was back, and then ran home as quickly as he could, anxious to meet the others the next day and tell them about the Scarecrow. The meeting in the summer house the following morning was quite exciting. The others were all there waiting impatiently when Jack and Colin arrived, feeling very important. Colin looked proud of the bruise on his cheek where he'd been struck the night before, and Jack started to tell the others all about their adventure. He was enjoying himself and taking rather a long time to tell their story when Peter interrupted him.
Get to the point, Jack. You're so long-winded. What did you hear while you were up the tree?
Well, the first man, he must have been the Jim mentioned in the letter. He said, "The Scarecrow." "That's where it is," he said. "The Scarecrow." Then the two men went off, and I didn't have time to follow them because I was up the tree.
You did very well. Extremely well. It was a pity about Colin's sneeze. Still, you heard the main thing, Jack, and that was the word scarecrow.
What does it mean, though? Does it mean a real scarecrow?
No, there's a tiny, very old inn called the Scarecrow up on the common. I bet that's where something's hidden. Loot from some robbery, probably.
Yes, I remember seeing that inn. Peter, let's go up there.
Yes, we'll go up there now. We might find Albert digging away in some corner of the garden. It would be very interesting to see what he digs up. Get your bikes, everybody.
One other thing I'd better tell you all.
What's that?
What is it?
It's Susie. She told me that she and Jeff heard me tell Mother where our cave is, and she and Jeff went up there this morning and have decided to use it as their meeting place.
And much good may it do to them. Our friend Albert will probably take their things as he did ours.
I'd still like to know how he gets into the cave without using the entrance. Never mind. Off we go to the Scarecrow Inn.
But at the old Scarecrow Inn, they were in for a bitter disappointment. It was no longer an inn and just had two old people living there as caretakers. They told the children that they hadn't seen anyone for weeks, and it was quite plain that no one had been digging in the garden as it was full of enormous weeds. After a discussion, the Secret Seven then decided it must be a real scarecrow where the stuff was buried, and they had a strange time hunting round for scarecrows. Pam and Barbara found a fearsome one in the field where the ground was too hard to bury anything. Colin and Jack and George all got chased away from the scarecrows they found by angry farmers. Janet and Peter examined 4 more scarecrows near their own farm. But plainly, no one had disturbed the earth near any of them. When Peter and Janet got home, their mother looked at their muddy shoes.
Take those shoes off and leave them outside. Where have you two been?
We've been looking at scarecrows, Mummy.
Scarecrows?
Yes, Dad.
You should go and see the Scarecrow up in the oat field. Old James tells me it's got a robin's nest in each pocket. He noticed it because somebody has been walking over his precious oat field and he followed the trail to the Scarecrow.
Walking to the Scarecrow? Who was it, Dad?
Goodness knows.
Can I, go and look at the, robin's nest?
Now, before dinner. Don't be silly, dear. The nest won't fly away. They'll still be there after dinner.
After they had eaten, Janet and Peter ran down the garden, out of the gate, and down the road to the old oat field. Old James's scarecrow flapped in the wind, and the children ran across to it. But when they saw that the ground around it had footprints everywhere, and the soil had been well dug up, they knew they were too late. They had a look at the robins' nests, and then walked home very disappointed. It was 2:30, and the other members of the Secret Seven were waiting in the summer house. They were very downcast at Peter's news. They decided to go back to the cave and collect Jack's torch, which he had left there. That's if Albert hadn't taken it. When they reached the cave, Jack went up to it first, then stopped short in surprise. Someone was there. He could hear 2 voices, one of which he knew was Susie's. He went in the cave, frowning.
Susie, what are you doing here?
Oh, Jack, I'm glad you've come. Something peculiar has happened.
It's pretty peculiar that you and Jeff should come to our cave.
Don't be cross, Jack. Listen, please. Jeff and I came here to hide and wait for you all to come in at the front entrance there and jump out at you. We buried ourselves in the sand out of sight, and then someone came from the back of the cave, trod on poor Jeff, and went out.
And yet, we know the cave was empty.
Peter, Janet, everybody come here quickly.
What is it? Susie! Clear out, Susie. And you, Jeff. This is our cave, not yours.
Wait! They've told me something very strange. They know that someone came out of the back of this cave. They were buried in the sand and...
Yes, and I had a thud, and someone walked over me.
Then the way in from the back must be somewhere near the roof. Colin, keep guard at the entrance. The rest come to the back of the cave. Shine your torch to the roof, Jack.
There's a ledge up there.
I'm going up to it. Let me have the torch, Jack. Gosh!
What is it?
What is it?
There's a round hole and a rope end hanging down. I can just reach it.
Putting the torch in his pocket, Peter caught the rope in both hands and climbed up it as he did in the gym. He came to a broad ledge and rested for a moment. Then he put his head through the hole that still went upwards and found himself looking into another cave. He shone his torch around, gave a gasp of astonishment, clambered back down the way he'd gone up, and went to get some air at the front of the cave. The others gathered round him.
What did you find? Tell us.
Please tell us. There's a cave up there with all our things in it. And there's a mailbag, I think, probably full of registered envelopes. Goodness knows how long it was buried beneath our scarecrow.
What a find! Now we know how our mysterious visitor got into the cave without passing the front entrance when he wanted to steal our things.
Now listen, he may come back at any moment, but he won't dare to come here while there's people here. So make a noise. I'm going to tell Dad, and he'll phone the police. I'll leave Scamper with you.
Right. You were really clever finding that cave, Peter.
Well, I really put you onto it. Gosh, I was glad to see you, Jack.
You were wrong to come to our cave, but for once you were right to tell me what you'd seen. Now, if you want to stay with us, behave yourself. Do you hear?
Yes, teacher.
Be quiet, or out you both go, you and Jeff.
And they all began to make a noise while Peter ran to tell his father. Peter's father could not make head or tail of the boy's breathless story at first, but at last he made out enough to tell his wife to phone the police while he went with Peter to the cave. There the others were waiting anxiously. The green curtain was tied back, and Peter's father gazed into the cave.
I'd forgotten this old cave. I loved it when I was a boy, but I never knew there was a cave above it.
Come and see, Daddy.
When we had our things taken, we never guessed someone was hiding above us. There's a mailbag up there, Dad. Do you think the man stole it?
Probably. I wonder how long it's been up there.
Only since last night. It was buried by the scarecrow in the oat field.
So that's why you were so interested in scarecrows all of a sudden. Go and see if the police are coming, Peter.
Peter and Scamper set off through the quarry, and halfway through, Scamper ran to a hummock and started barking violently. Peter saw a curious mound in the sand, which Scamper jumped on.
Hey! I know who you are. You're Albert, aren't you? Hiding till we're all gone so you can fetch the stolen mailbag. You meant to leave the bag in Inspector.
Hello, Peter. What's all this? And who's the fellow lying in the sand? Surely it's Albert Tanner. We've been looking for you, Albert, ever since the last mail robbery. I knew you'd been up to some adventure, Peter, as soon as your mother phoned us. Is Albert anything to do with it?
Yes, my father's over there by the cave waiting for us.
Come along then, Albert. You're under arrest.
Hello, Inspector. Why, you've got Albert Tanner.
You know him, do you, sir?
Yes, he used to work for me, but he was so dishonest I had to dismiss him.
That's how he knew about the cave then, and the one above. He must have explored it like we did.
This man and another did a mailbag robbery. The other man hid the bag somewhere, meaning to get it when the commotion about it died down. He worked on this farm once too. His name's Ted Yorks.
Ted Yorks? Yes, he was another bad lot.
Well, as I said, these two planned the robbery, and the mailbag was hidden, ready to be found, and the contents shared. But Ted got caught and put in prison, where he still is.
But he managed to get a note out of prison, telling Albert where the mailbag was hidden. Albert hid in this cave until he got Ted's message.
And when he got it, he went to meet Jim, who told him it was under the scarecrow where they used to work.
These kids know all about you, you see, Albert. Now, where's the mailbag you dug up?
I don't know anything about no mailbag.
I'll get it, shall I?
The mailbag, Peter? Don't tell me you know where it is. Right, get it. So off Peter went to the back of the cave, shinned up the wall, and disappeared. Soon there was a heavy thud on the sand, and there, to the inspector's astonishment, was the mailbag. Oh, that is magic. Well, I'm sure our Albert won't be stealing any more mailbags for a very long time. Come along with me, Albert. And well done, Secret 7.
Peter, here's some money. Take all the Secret 7 out for a thumping good tea. You all deserve it.
Thank you very much. You're so kind.
You're not coming, Susie. We're the Secret 7. You don't belong.
Oh, couldn't she come? Just for once. She did tell you about Albert coming from the back of the cave. Please.
No, we're the Secret 7, and she'll only laugh at us.
I won't. I think you're wonderful. Let me come, just this once. I want to hear all about this exciting adventure.
You can come, Susie, and Jeff too. Just this once. It is an exciting adventure, and it will take us to at least 4 ice creams each to tell it.
And it did too. Good old Secret 7. They always get there in the end.